Good evening, and welcome to another episode of the Collaboration Culture Podcast. I am your host, Kimberly Winborn of Kimberly Winborn, LLC, and of course, visionary of Coffee and Collaborations Media. And I am here with another amazing guest this evening in our series, The Voice of Leadership. We have been now doing this series for over a month, and the conversations have been amazing. So I am going to continue in that stead, and you will not be disappointed with my special guest this evening, Dr. Eric Williams. My dad loved coffee. He would spice it up like he did everything with a little bit of cayenne pepper. He was a man who enjoyed experiences. Our love of coffee was an experience we bonded over. Whether we enjoyed a cup to start the day, midday, or after dinner, we understood that a good cup of coffee was an opportunity to build relationships, to pause and experience the moment. At Coffee and Collaborations Media, we decided to launch this coffee line on Father's Day, featuring the Cowboy Blend coffee to honor my dad, the creator of Popeye's Chili and a cowboy at heart. His memory will live on in many ways. Grab a bag of this fresh roasted coffee on our website today by going to the coffee tab at www.coffeeandcollaborations.com. I am so excited, y'all. Y'all know I'm always excited, right? But I am so excited because Dr. Williams was just here for an event that we did here locally in Raleigh that I've been talking about for weeks, if you've been following, called The Gathering. And we celebrated the history of the African American church. Now, I want you to learn a little bit more about Dr. Williams. Why I asked him to be a part of this has a lot to do with his background. He was a former professor of mine. Many of you know I'm at Shaw University Divinity School, but leading from that, I was so impressed by this man. I have had the opportunity to have conversation and continue to get to know him as a leader. And so that's what we're talking about this evening. And so, Dr. Williams, can you share with the audience a little bit about yourself? I know, I've read the bio and all that, but in your own words, can you share a little bit about yourself and your journey?
Taught at Iowa State University, Shaw University, Virginia Union University, Western Theological Seminary in Holland, Michigan, Ashland Theological Seminary in Detroit, Michigan, and then Boston College and Harvard University. I left Harvard University where my appointment was in African and African American Studies, but I also taught in the Divinity School. So my areas are African American Studies and religion, or theology. And so I approached this conversation as an educator. Yeah. And I look forward to the conversation that we will have today.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you stopped right there on education and being an educator, because as we talk about leadership, do you believe that educators are leaders? And do you believe that educators, well, yourself being an educator, you could just speak for yourself if you like, that it is a necessary stance that you have to take, and therefore the lifestyle that you lead must follow that path of leadership?
Yes, no, I thank you for that question. I think that's a very urgent and important question. And for me, it's very clear that educators are leaders. Some of them are good leaders, and some of them are not so good leaders. Yeah. But they are in a leadership role. People depend on them to lead them. They depend on them to guide them. That when things get sticky and messy, as an educator or a teacher, that one has to solve conflicts often. Yes. That can get quite messy, and so it requires some skill. And I was saying to someone today that my that the most powerful definition that I ever heard of an educator is one who leads, he or she who leads out of darkness.
Yes.
And educators have that vocation of leading people into places of enlightenment, into places of understanding, into paths of clarity.
Yes.
And so I think that's at the core what it means to be a leader, to bring people out and to raise people up and to cause people to unbow their heads and to look up.
Yeah. And I want to put a pin in the subject of enlightenment for just and stay right there for just a second, because I think about enlightenment in relation to identity on both sides of the coin of your career, theological studies and African studies. So when it comes to enlightenment and it comes to being an educator, how do you think that plays a role in identity? People being able to understand and ascertain who they are as a result of education.
Yeah, I think that's central to the educational enterprise, that when one teaches, when one instructs, that one at the base level is to provide people opportunities to explore their own identity and to explore their own perspectives, to explore their own histories. I would tell my students all the time in the classroom that I can give you an assignment, but I want you to, based on what we've done together, that I want you to conceive of an assignment that will help you understand yourself. In the words of Katie Cannon, to do the work that your soul must have. Because at the end of the day, it's about your soul. It's about your own wholeness, your own healing, your own development. And it's out of that you help others, that you enlighten others, that you inspire others, that you excite others. And so I think that that identity formation is at the very core of the educational process, and it's at the very core, I think, of excellent leadership.
I agree. It's such a well thought out and delivered answer. And that, as you were talking, it made me think about so many things. So I was like, what direction am I going to go next? And what I really want to do is backtrack for just a second and have you to define leadership. And in that, with the title of the series being The Voice of Leadership, what does that sound like for you, or what does that represent for you when you hear that term, the voice of leadership? So that's two things. Can you define what leadership is, and then what is that voice of leadership when you think of that? And it could be lifelong. When you think of the voice of leadership, it could be a person that, in your journey through your matriculation through life that you think of. But just if you could, expound upon.
Yeah, I think that leadership is the ability and the requisite skill sets that is required to lead people into places of fulfillment, to lead people into places of empowerment, to lead people into places of greater and deeper understanding of life and of the self and of the world, to lead people into deeper understandings of service, deeper understandings of others, of the other, in ways that promote life and health and wholeness.
Yes. And the voice of leadership.
And the voice of leadership, that could be answered in different ways.
Okay, and it's open.
Because one thinks about the voice of leadership as the I'm thinking about the voice of a leader, and I think about the voice of a leader, and the care and the concern, and the interest, and the desire to empower and to uplift and to strengthen, and in the end to really cultivate the gifts in others, and to call forth the leader in others, that can then move forth in the world as leaders themselves.
Yes.
And so it's like that the leader, I think a good leader, produces after their own kind. And they empower people, and they call forth the gifts in others to set them in a place where they can become leaders themselves and lead others as well.
I love that. And so years ago, I went to a conference, and I was listening to a slew of speeches back to back, as conferences go. And there was this statement to me that a person said, and it stuck with me since that point. And this has been maybe since 2015. He said, "The leader creates the culture." The leader creates the culture. And of course, we're the Collaboration Culture podcast, so culture is big. I think culture is something that many of us are seeking out, whether for ourselves, for others, to be a part of, to find like-mindedness and so many other things. And so when you think of that statement, the leader creates the culture, how do you define that, or how do you look at that statement?
Yeah, I think that is... I think that's a really powerful notion, because I do think in large measure that the leader is responsible for ensuring that the climate is conducive for the culture.
Correct.
Making sure that everyone understands their function and understands their role. In moments of conflict, in moments of tension, that the leader has to put on another hat, and to make sure that to make sure that harmony is maintained.
Correct.
And that the ecology is healthy, and that things flow and things work and things gel and things jive. I think that the leader is definitely central in that process. The maintenance of the ecology.
Yes, the maintenance of the ecology. And I think that statement struck me so greatly, because oftentimes, especially in the world, let's just situate ourselves in the United States, since that's where we are. We often see leadership, or people who are in leadership roles, but they are not. They do not have the attributes of what we define or see or learn as a leader. And, that's one of the things that it was so impactful for me to observe in order to have the conversation around, to highlight then leaders that I run across who I think, and I know nobody's perfect, but who I think are great examples of leadership. They have integrity. They have core values that align with mine and so many others. They have followers. And I don't mean followers like worshipers, but followers, people who say, okay, this I can stand by. I would love to follow what you're doing because I align with that. And so that is why I asked you and some of the others who have come on, because they are actually leading massively and have those who are following, and as a result of following, are able to be impacted in various ways. And so with that being said, what is it that you wake up and think about, maybe not every day, but as you envision your life throughout your life, when it came to being an impactful person, does that lead you in any capacity? And if so, how is it that you have aligned your life in order to be that impactful leader?
Before I respond to that, I was triggered by something that you said as it relates to the leader and those, and how people, that when you have a quality leader,
Yes.
that people desire to follow that leader.
Yes.
Because they derive something from the methods and the thoughtfulness of the leader.
Yes.
And they see it as an opportunity for growth and for development. And as you were speaking, I was thinking of the text where Paul says, St. Paul says, follow me as I follow Christ.
Yes.
That I'm conscious enough to know that sometimes leaders lose their way. Sometimes leaders lose the plot. But as long as I'm on target, right, that I'm trying to create that kind of culture, back at the cultural creation, that you understand, as long as I'm on target, because you all understand this mission now, and as long as I'm in it, you follow me.
Yes.
But what he didn't say, which we can also all infer, is that if I stop following,
Right.
then you all know what what you need to do.
Jump ship.
Yes, exactly.
Because I've set the foundation.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. If I decide to break ranks, if I decide to go rogue,
Yes.
and stop following the mission that we set out to do together, as long as I'm with that mission, you stay with me.
Yeah, and it's such a great point. I'm glad you did step back, because that's such a great point for anybody listening. Because oftentimes we do have to make that decision to jump ship. And so many times we stay in situations so much longer than necessary, follow people so much further than we should, because we forget the original mission. We lose the plot. Absolutely. Yeah.
And we talk a lot about leadership formation, but there's also a such thing as leadership deformation.
Yes.
Where you can actually be deformed. And sometimes when you stick around too long, after things have gone a little too far, you actually can become warped in your own development. And I think that we should be on guard for that.
Yeah. And I mean, it makes me think of the heart, like why it's so significant and important to guard our hearts, to stay connected to a source, God, I say, but because we are human, I mean, just for simple terms, we are human and we are imperfect. And one of the things that I really feel that it's significant to discuss, though, in all of that, because and you made me think of this because we took another step back, right? Hurt, pain, and a part of that deformation is definitely impactful in a negative way to those who are following. And so I wonder sometimes. So this will speak to accountability for just a second. When it comes to you yourself not going down that path, like not veering and being able to stay forward moving and continue to lead well, right? How do you balance that? Do you have a person, a mentor, an accountability, somebody that helps to keep you on the right path? Because, we've had a few behind the scenes conversations prior to this, where I really felt like you made some great choices in situations where maybe you could have made a different choice, and we all have that opportunity to make a choice. So how do you stay moving forward towards?
That's a powerful question. And what I think and what I believe is that leaders and people who are very serious about life, and people who are discerning, that they should surround themselves with what I call a wisdom circle.
Yes, that's what I call it too.
I got some folks in my wisdom circle who I've studied the way in which they think about things, the very careful way in which they make decisions, the way in which they make judgments in their the spirituality that guides their kind of discernment processes. And when I find myself in a place where I think, that I need some folks to help me to kind of discern with me, I go to my wisdom circle. Yeah. And when I call them, they already know that I'm coming to them for wisdom.
That's awesome.
I'm coming to them for perspective. And I think this very notion of group discernment is a very powerful notion. Yeah. I was talking to a preacher the other day. He was he was thinking about what could he preach for. Father's Day.
Okay.
Because he hadn't had his sermon done, so he was about to prepare what I call a Saturday night special. And I told him, I'm not preaching for Father's Day, but if I were to preach, I think I would want to talk about the story of Samuel and Eli. Where in this wonderful story, you have the story of an older man who has a young person, a youth, who is hearing voices.
Yes.
And is not able to distinguish what the voice is that's calling him.
Yes.
But the older man of God says to the young youth that if after he heard it 3 times, said, you hear it again, I think I know.
Yeah.
I think something is happening. That's group design. That's a discernment process where he's involved in another person's discernment.
Yeah.
He said that maybe I didn't call you. There's a lot of voices in the land that call us. But I think that maybe God is calling you.
Right.
And so this is what you do. That if you hear this voice call you again, then say these words, speak, Lord, thy servant here.
Yes.
And I think that sometimes we need to invite people into our lives, into our experiences, to help us to discern that voice.
Yes. And I love that story.
And so I told him, I said that he said, well, what would you call it? It would be Fathers Teach Us to Discern. What greater vocation, I'm preaching now. What greater vocation? What greater vocation?
What?
I'm stepping into a preacherly moment. But what greater vocation could a father, and I'm not just talking limited to biological fathers, than to help a young person to discern the voice of God? What better thing? What better service could a seasoned man or woman of God do than to help a young person discern the voice? And I think that these principles apply when we're talking about leadership. We're talking about when we get to these forks in the road, how we make a decision which way we should go.
Yes, yes. Which leads me back to impact. It leads me back to impact and the awakening of the day and how you conduct your day and how you make decisions. And I think you've already sort of answered it, besides some of the other questions. But do you have anything that you would like to add to that statement? I'll backtrack. When it comes to impact, when it comes to you and your role as a leader and making an impact and waking up in the day and being very, certain about the things that you are going to say yes to, the things that you are going to say no to, that because you need it to be in alignment with the mission, the core values. Do you have anything else that you want to add to that and or impact?
Yeah, well, I just would like to say that I think if we were if I were to name my leadership style, I think I would say that I'm radically collaborative.
Okay.
I have gifts, but I recognize that others have gifts. And the folks that I work with, they have gifts too. And one of the things that I like to do is to identify the gifts in others and to talk to those on my team about the vision that calls them forward. Because if there's any way that I can help them through my leadership and through the work that we're doing together to get to that place that they feel like they're being called, I want to be about that.
Yeah.
And so I told the story today about the 3 questions that Cornel West said he had for Barack Obama when he was on the road to the presidential election in 2009. West said, I don't know much about that brother, but I have 3 questions for him. He said, number 1, is he Socratic? Will he raise the critical questions?
Right.
I seek to be Socratic, to raise the questions and to create a culture where those who are part of my team can raise questions.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Also, I seek to be prophetic because there's sometimes you got to tell folks the truth. Tell them, no,
baby.
no. You know better than that. Listen to what you just said. Is that what you believe?
Right.
I know you don't believe that, and you know you don't. Right? So sometimes you have to speak truth.
Yeah.
Speak truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Even when, John Mayer said, even when your hands are shaking, you got to tell the truth.
Absolutely.
And then that last notion, what West talks about, the blues likeness. That's about empathy. That's about being in touch with the human condition, being in touch with a person's challenges and their struggles.
Yeah.
I think that's very important.
Yeah.
But then that at the end of the day, though, and I tell my students that, and I'm sure you heard me say that in class, that and it comes out of my what I call the didactic impulse as a teacher, that I tell my students that I'm a democratic intellectual. What kind of assignments do you want to do that will help you to do the work that your soul needs?
Yeah.
Because I'm interested in your development. Because you are being trained to serve others. And so what are the questions that you're wrestling with?
Yeah.
Because I want to set you up to succeed.
Yeah.
In the vision that thing that calls you forward. And you have to tell me what that is.
Right.
So we can help you get there.
You know, and so we were talking about being a leader who develops leaders, right? So with that question that you may ask your students, being collaborative, have you found that as a result of no one else ever really doing that in their journey through life and other educators, so forth and so on, that you hit a wall that many do not have an answer when you ask them what is it that they want to learn, because they're looking for the structure that has been given throughout life that left no room for that. Have you?
Yeah, I think that when I allow students, and I tell students that this is how I want us to work together, to covenant to work together, that they're surprised and they think that I'm different. You're not just going to tell us what to do.
Very true.
No, if I tell you what to do, that might not be what you need to do. So what are the challenges in your context? What are, they use Ezekiel's notion, what are the dry bones in your zip code? Because I'm sure you'll be more interested in writing about the death in your zip code than writing about some stuff that happened in Europe in the 1500s. And so I think that I aim to be relevant.
Yeah.
And I want to produce leaders. I want to produce teachers. I want to produce pastors that zero in on relevancy.
Yeah.
I think that's what the world needs.
What's next in your journey when you think through all the things that you've done, where you are today, and where you project to be, without worrying or anything like that? But what do you see as next in your leadership journey, your journey through education, pastor, everything? What do you see as next?
That's a very serious question. And so I first want to say that, I've been with the Smithsonian almost 7 years. But July the 1st, I will be shifting vocational contexts, and I will be leaving the museum, and I will be moving back to North Carolina to join the teaching faculty at my alma mater, Duke University School of Divinity.
Yes,
At Duke University, I will, thank you, I will serve as assistant professor of theology and Black church studies, as well as lead the office of Black church studies. I'll serve as the director of the office of Black church studies.
Yeah.
So I think that this context, this new context of ministry will be dynamic because I get to bring together a lot of the gifts and the skill sets that I've developed over the years, and that I get to serve the church in a way that I did not serve in my role at the Smithsonian.
Okay.
And so there's a pastoral function to the work of the Office of Black Church Studies, because those students sometimes they need a pastoral presence. And these PWIs, they have all kinds of challenges, and I hope that my work will serve as a pastoral presence. Of course, being back in a research institution, to be able to produce research, undertake research, and produce publications that reflect the challenges of the communities in which I serve and which my students will be called to serve.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're reading these books that come, and there's much learning in books that where the context is radically different than ours. But we need to see some case studies that reflect the challenges in our churches. And so to be involved in that is very exciting.
Yeah.
But also this opportunity to re-engage alumni, to find context for our students, our students of African descent, to find context for service, for field placement. You know, that's a large part of the Master of Divinity program. They want to actually put you in a place where you can do ministry.
Yes.
Often our students receive cross-cultural appointments because we don't have a lot of churches that have the resources to hire interns, to pay someone to come to spend their summer in Los Angeles or in Phoenix or in Albuquerque,
right?
To do this. So to be able to acquire resources to help people to do those things, and it's just really interesting this new position. I'm very excited, and to be coming back to North Carolina, it's exciting. It really is, but it's bittersweet because I loved Washington. I loved that city, the youth culture in Washington. It was all the way live. but people ask me all the time, Eric, you gonna go back to North Carolina? You gonna leave Washington, D.C. to go to Durham? And what I say to them is that you don't understand that I have Pauline flexibility.
Okay. Yeah.
That I have learned to adjust for the context. I live where I love, and I love where I live. I love D.C., but when I was in Durham, I loved Durham, and I will love her again. And so I come back. I come back to love Durham, and so I'm looking forward to this part. So, and then beyond that, though, I've always felt, and I don't say this all the time to people, but you ask, so I'm going to tell you. Even during my training, that I was nurturing two callings. That I became awakened to scholarship and to teaching and to academics. But I've always felt that this other calling I was nurturing was to serve the church. And so I feel called to bivocational ministry. And I don't know when, I don't know where, but I can tell you that my highest vocational aspiration is to be a pastor and to be a servant of the servants of God.
Amen. With the church.
Can the church say amen?
Can the church say amen? Oh my goodness. We could talk all night, but this has been amazing.
Thank you.
So amazing. I have had the honor to have this wonderful person to join me this evening, and I could not have asked for a better person to continue to kind of, you know how when you're doing a series, it gets a little flat. Mine hasn't been flat, but to reignite it even the more, or to ignite it even the more, to put some other fuel into the flame has been good this evening.
Thank you.
So I want to thank you all for joining. I want to thank Dr.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, you told me not to cut. So I want to thank Eric for joining us this evening, Dr. Williams. And please be sure to pay attention to the journey. That's what I'll say. Pay attention to the journey. I believe that there's so much more we'll see from this man. And so pay attention to the journey. And I'll be highlighting as much as I can, because that's what I do. So is there anything else that you want to say before we wrap up?
Well, I just want to thank you again for an opportunity
Absolutely.
to have this conversation with you and to allow me to meet your community today. That was really powerful, the gathering today. And it's just been a glorious day. And I want to say that I feel so blessed to be a part of it, to have been a part of it. And
Thank you.
Yeah, may God, as they say in East Africa, may God strengthen the work of your elbows as you continue to do this great work.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you all once again for joining. Be sure to follow us at Coffee and Collaborations on all social media, at Coffee and Collaborations Media on YouTube. And I am so excited for all that we are doing and all that is ahead. Love and Flow TV is taking the summer off to do some kind of reworking. So look for Love and Flow TV to come back very soon. Every week, next week, we'll have another guest for the Collaboration Culture podcast in this series, The Voice of Leadership. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. And one last thing, you all, we just launched our coffee line. So if you're a coffee lover and or you want to try out coffee for the first time, you want to make it an experience, please go over to coffeeandcollaborations.com. Click the tab that says coffee and go ahead and purchase. And this month we're featuring, for the Father's Day season, our Popeye's Chili edition as a tribute to my late dad who passed away last June. So I am so excited about, as I said, what's going on, what's ahead, and looking forward to engage you somewhere around here in the culture. Have a great rest of your evening.
This has been a Coffee and Collaborations Media production.